What's going on, everybody? This is Al from PlaybookGamer.com, and I am back with another video to our NCAA Football 06 Recruiting Guide series. I've made two videos up to this point. One was on preseason recruiting. The second was on in-season recruiting, and today I'm covering all of off-season recruiting. This is the bigger main feature recruiting-wise for NCAA 06 and for the other NCAA football games for that matter. Make sure you use the timestamps below so you can navigate it, because this is going to be a pretty long video, I would imagine. So make sure you use that so you can reference and quickly get to where you need to go to for future reference. And I'm just going to cover what off-season recruiting is all about and how it works. I'm going to throw in some strategies in there along the way, my process on how I like to go about doing things. And if I feel like I need to make more detailed videos about off-season recruiting, by all means, I can do that somewhere down the road. Having said all that, let's jump right into off-season recruiting. Now, we are using the Pitt Panthers as an example for these little three-part series. And if you remember in the previous video, we went through in-season recruiting, and we was able to get 5 commitments from a quarterback, a middle linebacker, a corner, a center, and a defensive tackle. Now, we always got to remember this team overview screen. This tells us kind of what's coming back and what numbers we need to think about. Because, for example, this is the big number right here, 51. This is the current amount of players that should come back next season, barring somebody wanting to leave early or transfer or what have you. Then we picked up the 5 commitments. So now, if you add those two numbers together, that gives us 56. Well, the most amount of players we can have on a team at one time is 70. So 70 minus 56 gives us 14. So I always keep that number in my head. As long as I get roughly 14 guys, I'm good, because I'm not a big proponent of over-recruiting. I've done it in the past. Sometimes you have to, especially if you got some really bad players. For example, we can go to rosters. And if you go to view edit rosters, and you see right here where you can go by position, you can sort it by that. So I'm going to go to all, and we see the overall here that's highlighted. I'm going to hit the circle button. You see on the bottom right, it says sort column. You notice we got a bunch of guys in the 60s. Maybe I feel like I need to over-recruit a little bit. Again, I normally don't like to do that, but I understand if you want to do that, if you want to clean house a little bit. Having said all that, I still have that number 14 in the back of my mind. Now, before we jump into recruiting, off-season recruiting, when you finish all of the bowl games, the last game of the season is the national championship game. Once everything is done, while you're in play week, this is going to pop up. Advance to the off-season. Right now, we're going to hit no, because there's a few things I like to do first before we head into off-season. The first thing I like to do is go back to rosters and go position by position and just write down what I need. The biggest thing I look at is how many seniors are leaving that position. That way I have an idea of how many guys I kind of want for that position. Now, I can make separate videos for how I like to go about doing this, but I just want to give you just a little bit of explanation of how I take notes. For example, quarterback. I like to have 3 to 5 guys in my QB room at all times. Well, we are losing a senior. That means as of right now, we only got 2 guys coming back. I want at least a couple more. Well, we just got a quarterback committed, which is nice, so I don't have to worry about it too much in the offseason. But normally, I would just write down QB-1. I just need to know the amount of players for that position I would prefer to have in this next recruiting class. So what I'll do is go position by position, depending on your offense, depending on your defense. I want to know how many players I would like to have added on to each position. And I've already made my notes, and what I've done was I wrote down my positions, and I wrote down the number that I want for each one. And there's about 8 positions I wrote down here. And once I added them up, it came out to the number 14. What's interesting, and that's just kind of magically the way it happened, if you go back to in-season recruiting, and we looked at our team overview screen, what did I just mention? 51 plus 5 gives you 56. Take that away from 70, 14. So it just roughly came out to exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm hoping to pick up 14 extra guys in the off season. So you do not have to do this. You do not have to take notes, but I do that just so I don't have to go back to this roster every single time. If I didn't write down notes, I'd go back here 40 different times. I don't want to really do that. But you do have the view edit roster screen and info available to you while you're doing off-season recruiting. So don't feel like this is your last chance to look at your roster. Okay. Another thing I like to do is go to depth chart, and I want to see how many seniors, starting seniors, will be leaving the program. This gives me an idea of how many points I want to put into recruiting, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. So I'm going through here, and I noticed my starting quarterback this season was a junior. He may leave early, but as of now, I can't really count him as leaving because he still technically is coming back. Halfback's a sophomore. We have a starting fullback, so that's one. You got wide receiver. We don't have any seniors at wide receiver that are starting. Tight end, we got one there, so that's two guys. Then you got 3, 4, 5. He's not a senior, and he's not a senior. So we got 5 on offense that we definitely know we're going to leave. Then you go on defense. I'm seeing a sophomore, a junior, defensive tackle. Here's one. So this is number 6. This is a freshman. This is a backup. I'm not really going to count him, even though I probably should. Normally, he would be a starter, so we could go ahead and count him. So that's 7. Then outside linebacker, we got a sophomore, a junior, middle linebacker, a junior there. Then at corner, we got one here, so that's 8. Then you look at free safety. Here's a senior, so that's 9 guys. Strong safety is a sophomore. We got a senior kicker, so that's 10. And then a punter is a junior. So almost half of your starters. You technically have 24 starters, but we came out to what, 10? So a little less than half of my starters are leaving. That just gives me a kind of a rough idea of when I'm going to do something here in a little bit, okay? So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Just a little less than half of my starters are gone. The last thing I like to do is go to program standards. This is the discipline screen. Now, as you notice right here, this bar is way high. That's because I didn't do any discipline throughout the regular season as I was simulate these games for the previous videos. And that's okay. This gives me even a better example of why we want to put extra emphasis on the team interest screen. That's going to be part of our recruiting points and such. So we're going to look at that here real shortly. So that is the last thing that I do. So just a quick recap before we actually start off season. I like to go to view and edit rosters. I like to write down my notes, how many players I would prefer to have in this next recruiting class for each position. Then I go to the depth chart and I look to see how many starters are actually leaving. And then I'll go to program standards and figure out how many points I need to spend for discipline points on NCAA team interest. Because as you see right here, we have at default your first season. I think you start out with like 70 points. I think it depends on the team. But we will adjust that here in a little bit. So those are the 3 things that I like to do. Now let's actually get into the off season. Let's back out. We'll go back to play week. And we're going to select yes. And here we are in the off season. Not a whole lot looks different other than the very top selection, which is off-season schedule. So let's select that. And what I'm going to cover today is school budgets, players leaving, recruiting, and position changes. The other ones I don't think I'll have to cover because it doesn't really pertain to recruiting. We'll see how that goes. So the first thing we have to do is school budgets. Here is school budgets. This is very important. You notice this is a percentage, so we have to use 100 points somewhere among these 3 right here. And right now at default, it has recruiting points at 35%, training at 29%, discipline at 36%. What I like to do is if I know half of my starters are leaving, then I pretty much leave it at like around 40%. Discipline at 36% is really high. That's a lot of points. Now, what dictates the amount of points you're going to get to use in off-season recruiting and in training is this right here, wins. This is the key to everything. Win your ball games. The more you win, the more points you get to play with. And we had a lot of points to play with. We got 10 wins this season, so we can move around some things. So let's start off. I want to take some points off so I can maneuver some points around a little bit. Let me go to 20 right here. Let me just do 25, and that gives me 21 points to play around with. So starting with the recruiting, I got half of my starters leaving, and I need about 14 guys. As of now, I know I got a lot of guys coming that I'm going to try to get to commit. There's no right or wrong way to kind of do this, but for now, I'm probably going to do like 40% for recruiting. If I only needed 8 guys to commit in the off season, and I had a bunch of guys coming back and just a combination of that, I may go down as low as 30%. So I usually go from 30 to 40% depending on what's coming back and who's my starters and such. In the past, there's so many scenarios, so I cannot cover them all. There may be some times where I will go and have to put 60 on recruiting because I need 30 guys, or there could be just some weird circumstance where you just feel like you need to overturn your roster. Do you remember when I talked about earlier about all those bad players you have at the bottom of your roster? Maybe you need to overturn them. If that's the case, you need more points to recruit. So you may want to do 60. I technically don't have to do that in this particular example. So again, I may do a separate video on all the various scenarios that I've come across. But for now, I'm just kind of showing you what this is. So for recruiting and for this example, I'll probably just do it at 40. Let me get it down to 40. So training, this kind of plays in part to recruiting. If over half of my starters are coming back, I'm a big proponent of training. This is like the easy, cheap way to get your players better. So I can go up to like 35, something like this. I usually go between, I don't know, 25 to 35. This isn't a hard rule, so don't treat this as gospel. But 25 to 35, just depending. But I just kind of in the back of my mind, I'm saying to myself, okay, roughly half of my starters are leaving, and I have about a solid 15 guys I need to go commit to my school. Because of that, this is going to be kind of balanced. It'll be 40-35. That's kind of close to each other. The remainder of my points will go to discipline. Now, if you remember what our discipline bar looked like from earlier, it is really high. So I may need to use extra points to over-discipline kids, that type of thing. Normally what I do is, I'm going to back out just so I can show you the example. I normally keep it between 20 at the low end when my bar is really low, because you just never know how many points you need in the next season to use. Or I may go up as high as 30. For this example, our discipline bar is so high because I just didn't bother to discipline anybody. I may keep it at 30 for the next season. That way I can use extra points to over-discipline and hopefully keep kids out of trouble in the future. So because of that, I may just do something like this. 40-30-30. Again, there's a bunch of different ways to do this, but at least now you know what this is about. Recruiting, and I need to take this arrow off. Recruiting is just the points you're going to use when we actually go into off-season recruiting. Training is just points we're going to put in the training kids. That's just an automatic thing the game does. And then discipline goes back to that discipline bar. These will be the points you will get to use in the next season. Okay? So we're going to go 40-30-30. So let's go on to the next screen. The next screen is players leaving. These are the kids that are going to leave for graduation or wants to go to the pro draft, NFL draft, or wants to transfer out or what have you. So this is all standard. Everybody you see here in white, these were the kids we were looking at earlier. These are like the 14 or however many kids we had that are ready to go because they are seniors and they don't have any more eligibility. The only other scenarios you're going to see here is guys who want to leave for another reason. For example, this guy was our number one running back, Brandon Mason. He looks like he wants to go pro early. So what you can do here is you see right here at the bottom, talk into staying. So we can pretend like we're going to talk this guy into staying. If we want to bring this guy back, now one thing you got to remember, how many halfbacks do we have at our team? Like 8, just a ton. So in this scenario, I may just ask him to go ahead, and I'm not going to waste points on him. But what happens is, if you want to talk this guy into staying, I'm going to hit the X button, and you see these points right here. This is part of your off-season recruiting points. So you have to say to yourself, do I want to waste points on a kid wanting to come back, or do I want to save those points for off-season recruiting? That's entirely up to you. I'll go ahead and tell you my opinion. I think every bit of this right here is all random. In terms of, especially this right here. You have this kid, he can't really, it's like right in the middle of the road here. Does he want to leave? Does he want to stay? He doesn't really know. What's the randomness is the amount of points I'm going to put onto him. So I can go up here and I can put a ton of points, because you see what happens every time I move this. Look what changes. Your week 1 points remaining. So this is kind of a big deal. You just really have to decide if this is what you want to do. I think every bit of this is random. For example, I can put 5 points on this kid and talk him into staying, or I can try 65. To be honest, I've done it so many different ways, and they still end up leaving, or they still end up staying. So I don't put a whole lot of emphasis in this, because this kid we have 8 guys in the halfback room. I'm going to go ahead and just not talk him into staying. I want to use those 5 points because that could be a pivotal 5 points we can use later on in off-season recruiting. So again, that's just something you have to decide for yourself what you think is best. In our scenario, I don't think we need him to come back. We're kind of loaded at this position, so I'm not going to do anything. So since that was the only option we had left, now what we got left should be actual off-season recruiting. So let's get into that. Before you get into off-season recruiting, it does give you a few options. Continue to recruiting, which is what we're going to do. You can export and save your draft class, or you can cancel and decide what you want to do about that halfback or whatever. In this case, we're going to continue to recruiting. Here we are at Recruiting Central. This is the off-season recruiting. This is where it really starts. Now, this particular screen, you can back out of here, and this just shows you your off-season schedule. You can back out again, and it gives you to your main menu. But when you go back in the off-season schedule, it's Step 3 Recruiting. And this screen gives us a few things to look at. The first thing is, everything at the very top is just our team information. But the biggest thing right here is week 1 of 5. Off-season recruiting comes down to 5 weeks of recruiting. We're currently in week 1. That's a lot less weeks than what we have in season, but I'm telling you, there's a lot more depth to off-season recruiting, mainly because you get to recruit everybody at this point. Okay, but that's what that means, because if you notice right here, we have the start button. You hit that start button, it asks you to advance to the next week. We don't want to do that because we haven't even begun recruiting yet, but that's what that means. And then you have a map right here in the dead center, and I can go from state to state, and it gives me some information. So when I go back to my home state of Pennsylvania, it tells me I have 19 current players on my team from the state of Pennsylvania. That makes sense. That's our home state. But you can also look at pipeline states. You notice this up here. It says pipeline states are in gold. They like to use the team colors, which I think is pretty cool. So you go over to the left, Ohio is a pipeline state. Now you notice that Pennsylvania went gold because it is our home state. It will always be a pipeline state. So we can continue on, and you'll notice all these other states are grayed out, which makes sense, but Florida is a pipeline state, so that kind of gives you an idea of where your pipeline states are at, and you'll be able to see that information on some other screens. But I just want you to be aware of what this map is all about. At the very bottom, you got Team Overview. We already know what this is. We've looked at it ad nauseum, but it's very important. This is the Team Overview screen. We can look right here, and we notice here at the very bottom, our magic number is now going to be 15. 70 is the max. We got 50 guys coming back. Plus, we already got 5 guys committed. That tells me 15 guys or 15 spots left to use that I would prefer to have. If I can go a little bit more, that's fine. A little bit less, that's no big deal. The other things we can look at, back to the overview screen, is at the very top, we have 25 scholarships available. Every single season, you technically have 25. The reason why it's 20 is because down here, we've already got 5 guys committed. Okay? Other things we can look at is, you notice, we still got a couple positions in orange, fullback and defensive tackle. That means we at least need 1 fullback on the roster to get to commit. The same with the defensive tackle. If we do not get those type of guys, the game will force walk-ons onto our program, but we do not want that because those guys are awful, and you can't get rid of them later on. So make sure you fill those needs however you can. Okay? So again, my magic number right now is roughly 15 guys. And scouting reports, that's the main hub of what we're going to be doing. We're going to look at that here in a minute. Then you got the help button. We all know what that is. So let's go ahead and select recruiting reports. And you got various options. You notice here how it went to Ohio prospects. This is state prospects list. So if I backed out and went over to here to Wyoming, I can go to the Wyoming in-state prospects. Now, you do not have to use this map. I'll go ahead and tell you, I never use this. It's a nice little visual to kind of show where your pipelines are at. But maybe I want more pipelines, so I need to pick up some extra commitments from New York just because it's close, or maybe West Virginia, or what have you. But this is a nice little thing to use, but I'm just telling you, I don't use it that often because the information is already built in into those scouting reports. So let's go back to Pennsylvania and Pennsylvania prospects. Again, these are your state prospects. So let's just go ahead and select that. And this screen is going to look very familiar. This is the main screen in terms of looking for players, recruiting prospects, all that good stuff. So at the very top, pretty much everything above this line we've seen before. you will notice how it's just got the player names, all that good stuff. Because every time I go down this list, it just populates the information at the very top. And for example, this Elite 11, all that means that is he is one of the top 11 quarterbacks in the country. That Elite 11 is all about quarterbacks, okay? So he is supposedly one of the top quarterbacks in the country. Now, he is a 5-star player, so there's a good chance that he is. But that's what that means. That's just a little bonus. That doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. You'll also notice here's like a blue chip. I'm not mistaken. I could be dead wrong. Somebody can correct me on this. I think this is the top 50 players in the country. It may be the top 100. Forgive me if I'm wrong on that. But in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't mean anything. Next up is everything below this. You see this right here? You can sort this list by position. And you can also sort it by the state. Because you got to remember, we are currently in the state prospect list. So when we back out of here, we can hit the right button. And we go to South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, just wherever you want to do that. So we can go back to Pennsylvania. Then you can go L2 or R2 to do your positions. So athlete, quarterback, halfback. You'll notice a few other things. Like halfback is a new position we'll talk about here in a little bit. You keep on going. It's all your same positions we've seen in the regular season. But then we can now recruit kickers. We can recruit punters. Okay? So everything below this, it's pretty self-explanatory. You got player names, you got their position, you got their caliber. This is related to their 5-star, 4-star, 3-star rating. That's all that is. Then you got interest level. Interest level is really no different than what we saw in the regular season, just in terms of what the bar means. Okay, let's get out of this. And of course, you'll always have your team overview screen to go through. Recruit player. This is how we're going to actually recruit players. And of course, you got the help screen. I am not going to do the recruit player. We will look at that here in a minute. But I just want you to get an idea of what this screen was all about. This is state prospects, okay? If you're really picky about which states you want to go after, this is probably the best way to do it. Next up is current targets. Current targets is going to show you the current players that you are targeting. We haven't targeted anybody yet in the offseason because we haven't recruited anybody. But it does show you any players that did commit in the regular season. Here are the 5 4-star players we picked up. So they will always be on this list, okay? And it shows right here that they are committed. So everything here, you see a check mark, that means committed. So everything you see here is pretty normal. It's self-explanatory, kind of what is what. But you will go back to this screen a ton, as you'll see here in a little bit. Next up, National Top 100. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, this may be all blue chip kids. Either way, these are the top 100 players in the country. Again, self-explanatory, not a whole lot of difference here. You will notice some of these guys on this screen have already committed elsewhere. So you see this little symbol right here. That means they are committed to another school, so you can't recruit them. Otherwise, I'm going to go down the list here. I'm just going to show you exactly what it means. It is exactly the top 100 players in the country. I'll just go ahead and tell you, this is a screen I rarely use because you got other screens that can be a little bit more useful, but at least now you know what it is. It's the top 100 players in the country. As you can tell, you got quite a few of them have already committed. Next up is all prospects. We will use this quite a bit a couple weeks down the road, but since we're in week 1, we're not too worried about it yet. But this is every single prospect in the entire country. And there are a ton of them. You see this little bar right here? This thing will barely move once you get down this list. There's just a ton of guys. You got to remember, in the regular season, it's 3 through 5-star. In the off season, it's everybody. Everybody. I'm from the South. We like to say everybody. So, but everybody you could think of is going to be on this list from 1 to 5. So that's what the all prospects list is. Then you have interested prospects. This is probably the most important screen of the bunch. You go to interested prospects and you see all these green dots. That means that this player is interested in you. And what that really means is if you go to the prospect screen, for example, we'll select Josh Stevens, this defensive end. We are in his top 5. In off-season recruiting, it's always the top 5. There's no top 8. It's just the top 5. And so what you're trying to do is get up to the very top and hope that he can commit. Okay, so that's what that means. That if you see green, that means you were in his top 5. Now, while we're here, let's just talk about the prospect info screen. This is, again, pretty important. So here we have, all the information about the player. There's his face, there's his position, his name, where he's from, his national position rank, which is pretty cool. I don't pay too much attention to that. I think it's just pretty neat that he's, it just shows you that information. His height and weight, of course, he is interested because we are in his top 5. And it shows right here, points remaining. We got exactly 180 points to play with this week. It changes every week. It slowly goes down every week. Then you got his tendency. This is something, again, I talked about this in the preseason video, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't pay a whole lot of attention to that, but it's there if you need it. Of course, we've already talked about his top 5 schools, and then we have his attributes. This is really no different than the regular season. Okay, so, you can have, that's his awareness rate. The awareness rating is this right here. The one up top is his speed. This is his jump rating. This is his strength rating. And this is his squat. And since he is a defensive player, it's tackle rating. Now, I will go in more into that when I recruit specific positions in separate videos. But again, the tribute list is really no different than what you saw in the regular season. And then you got this little button down here. This is your select button. This is to scout a prospect. Now, you see all these attributes right here. Well, these aren't exactly accurate. If you want accurate attributes, if you want to know what those numbers are really like, you scout the prospect. So let's talk about what I really like to do in week 1. Okay, so we're going to back out of here. You got to remember where we're at. We're going to back out, and we are in week 1 of 5. The very first week, what I like to do personally is scout nothing but interested prospects. And any remaining points I have left, then I may do some extra things with that. So we are currently week 1. This is where I get personal in terms of what I like to do, with my process. I always like to go to interested prospects, and then I'm going to go position by position by position and just see if I can find what I'm looking for. Okay. And right now it is at the every single position for all the interested prospects. So now it's just up to me to go through every single one of these positions and recruit some guys. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay. What I like to do is go position by position. So let's talk about athletes. Well, before we get into athletes, all this means right here, this guy is technically a junior. He is not a true freshman. So if you decided to go after this kid and he committed, he will be a junior when he gets onto your roster. If you don't know what a JUCO is, these are guys who are in these community colleges, that type of thing, and they're just trying to get back into the Division 1A scene, and they've already used up some eligibility. So you got to keep that in mind. I'm not a big fan of recruiting these guys, but you can definitely do so if you need to, especially if you really need somebody at a position. Okay? So you notice athlete. An athlete is a player who can play multiple positions. The key is you really don't know which positions he can play until you get to the position changes screen, okay, which we'll talk about at the end of the video. So we're going to go back to recruiting. We're going to go back to interested prospects. We're going to go to athlete. And I can go ahead and tell you, since I'm a 4-star program, I'm actually maybe a 5-star now since we played so well. 2-star athletes and above do pretty well for you, but you're just taking a gamble. You have no clue what they can do. But for example, here's a JUCO athlete, 6'4", 188, and look at this. What do you notice here? Of course, it is green. He is interested in us. We are in his top 5. But you also notice he is a JUCO. I'm not a big fan of going after JUCOs, but that's beside the point. But you notice over here on the left, he has a few different extra attributes. Pass accuracy and arm strength. That means we know he can at least play quarterback. But that also means he may be able to play safety or whatever. We don't know yet unless he actually committed. Okay? Now, we have already filled up our needs for quarterback. Thankfully, this team overview screen is always there for us to look at. So we can hold the circle button. And we got 2 guys coming back. We've already got 1 committed. Okay? Now, I can go ahead and scout this kid for 6 points if I want to. I'm not going to because I doubt this guy will do much of anything improvement-wise in his arm strength and pass accuracy. I could be dead wrong. I'm just guessing it probably won't happen. So I'm not going to scout him, but I just wanted you to be aware of what that is. And, of course, he's got blazing speed. At least we think he does. We just don't know unless we scouted him. But he doesn't fit my offense, so I'm not going to bother. But at least now you know when you go here, look what happens. We're going to the next guy. You see these little buttons up here? This is your up and down arrow. You're just going from one guy to the next. Okay? So let's go to the next guy, Aaron Williams. Now his attributes are a little bit different. Now it just shows his hands and his vertical jump. So these 2 spots right here are always going to be different depending on the player. And again, this doesn't tell me a whole lot about athletes. Now, I'm going to do a separate video on how to recruit athletes, but he's 6'2", 184 pounds. His hands are very good. Maybe he's a defensive player. I don't know. Let's just pretend we like him a whole lot, okay? Again, I like two-star athletes, so I'm going to go after him. So let's scout him. You notice how the scout number went down? That's because he is an in-state player. So the closer you recruit, the cheaper, the less amount of points you have to use. So if I backed out of here and we went and scouted somebody out of, for example, Ohio, let's go to all prospects, or I can go to state prospects, and let's pick Oregon. Okay, Oregon's on the other side of the country. Let's select this guy. Notice here, 9 points. So, and I do not know for sure, but I'm pretty sure it's 3, 6, and 9. The closer that player is to your school, the cheaper it is. So this guy's across the country. It cost me 9 points just to scout the kid, just because he's so far away. But since we were looking at an interested prospect from our own state, this Aaron Williams, it's only 3. So again, that's something to keep in mind. That's why it's a decent strategy, is to kind of keep it fairly close, just because it's just cheaper on you. And there's no such thing as a special player from Texas compared to somebody from Rhode Island. This game doesn't recognize that in a sense. Yes, there are more prospects to recruit in Texas compared to Rhode Island. But again, just kind of keep that in mind in terms of how cheap you want to use your points, or how many you want to use them. So let's pretend we're going to go after this guy. So let's select we're going to scout him. So when I hit the select button, it says, would you like to scout this prospect? We're going to hit yes. And this is the true stats. You notice here his 40 time, or his speed, is a little slower. His awareness isn't as good. His jump went up a little bit. His hands stayed the same. He went down a little bit in the bench, and his squat went down a little bit. Just because everything went down, that doesn't mean a whole lot to me. Now, I'm going to do a separate video on how all of these stats are converted and such, but that's for another video. So at least you know what that scouting does. It gives you accurate numbers of what we're going to do with this player in terms of what he can actually do. So I can go ahead and, you see the recruit player, you can do this, or you do not have to do this right now. But if I hit recruit player, this brings up some extra options. This is how you recruit a player. As soon as I give him some points on something, I will end up giving him a scholarship, because notice what popped up. Scholarships remaining, 20. So if I went ahead and just done a phone call, just something simple, and I selected a pitch, you got to remember these are the 6 pitches we talked about in the regular season: program prestige, location, playing time, coaching style, coach prestige, and academics. And if I hit the start button to recruit the player, now what pops up? Everything he is targeted. So now he is on our target list, and we have officially offered him a scholarship. Okay, so I don't want to do that right now. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and leave it as is, because normally what I like to do is I don't really offer many scholarships in that first week. Don't really have to. I can go ahead and tell you a little trick. Anytime you scout a prospect, for example, if I scouted this prospect right here, this automatically gives the program prestige rating to that player, or pitch. It's not a glitch. It's just the way it was kind of set up. So anytime you scout a player and you do nothing else, you're technically offering him like a temporary scholarship, and it shows him the pitch, because all you're doing right now is just scouting. But it does give the program prestige pitch. So when I go back out to this Aaron Williams, and I'm going to back out and I'm going to withdraw his offer, because I don't want to do that just yet. Leaving it as is, next time we come back to week 2, it's going to show that we offered him, or we showed him the program prestige pitch. So we'll see that a little bit later on in week 2. Okay, so that's how you recruit a player. Okay, now for this example, what I like to do, since I have no clue what he likes, so if I go here, and again, I'll just stop right there, and we'll actually recruit a player a little bit later on. Right now, we're going to talk about just scouting players. Okay, so I scouted him, and the rest what we can do is, let's pretend I want to go after another quarterback. Like this kid right here has got a decent arm. Let's pretend that we want to go after him. So we already went ahead and scouted him. And let's say I really want to scout him, or want him to come to our school. I may go ahead and put a scholarship on him. You do not have to do this. Again, I'd rather spend 90% of my points in week 1 on scouting. So let's just go ahead and do that, and I can come back to this later. So what we can do is go to halfback. We are good at halfback. We got too many guys. We got 4. Actually, we probably maybe need to pick up somebody. But here's a 3-star kid. We can scout him. I kind of like what I see there, so we can just leave it as is because I want to make sure I scout everybody I want to scout first. So for fullback, we know we need somebody. I can scout this kid. I always want to look at his accurate numbers. Like, I'm just kind of going, here's an in-state or a pipeline kid out of Ohio. So I'm very interested in him. Plus, I want this type of fullback. He's got some speed to him. He's a receiving fullback of some sort. So if I felt like it, I could go ahead and put a scholarship on him. But what I like to do in this case is I like to do the minimum amount of points until I can figure out which prestige or which pitch he likes. So let's go ahead and put a scholarship on him for the sake of it. Okay? I know I really like him. And if you want to, you can go back and let's pretend we want this guy as well. Again, I do the minimum until I figure out what he likes. Now, you notice this kid right here, top 5 schools. Purdue is very high. That doesn't mean much to me. We just got to see what happens week to week. Okay? So if you want to, you can go back at quarterback and say, I really like this kid. Go ahead and put a scholarship on him. You can if you want to. I just want to make sure I have enough points to scout everybody I want to scout because I like to use weeks 2 through 5 to not scout too many people, at least in terms of interest. Okay, so we can keep going. As you notice, not many receivers are interested in us, which probably makes sense because we got 7 guys are currently on the roster. You look at tight end, nobody's interested. Nobody at tackle. Guard, nothing but 1-star kids. I'm not interested in going after them. Center, we're okay at center. We did pick up the 1, so we're okay there. Defensive end, I'll go ahead and tell you I'm not a big fan of getting natural defensive ends. Normally what I like to do is go after middle linebackers and move them over. But at defensive end, we're kind of fine there. What we really need help on is defensive tackle. Now, unfortunately, these are a bunch of 2-star kids that I don't know are very worth it. So what we can do is we can start scouting some kids. Now, this kid is from Canada. I like his size and everything, but what really scares me is that he's still just a 2-star kid. Like, we can go ahead and scout him, and we notice everything went down a little bit, but at least I like his size. I'm not ready to put a scholarship on him yet. Here's a kid out of Ohio. We can scout him. You can compare. You can go from one guy to the next and see which one's a little bit stronger, which one's smarter. As you can tell, this kid's a little bit better than this kid right here. So if I felt the need, I can go ahead and just do a here, and I can do program prestige, location, whatever. Since he's a 2-star kid, I can go ahead and do location. That's fine. Again, this is going to be just, I'm not going to cover how I like to go about certain players because I don't have enough time for this video. That's for the separate position videos. But I can tell you right now, 2-star prospects, a lot of times, especially if they're kind of close, you can try the location pitch first. It's really no different than what we talked about in the regular season video. The higher the recruit, the more likely he'll like the prestige stuff. So I can go down and look at some of these other guys. Pennsylvania kid, 6'5", 280. Let's pretend I like this kid so we can go ahead and I can just scout him for now. And normally what I do is just go and scout and see if I really like here's another Ohio kid. I don't mind seeing that. Again, these are 2-star kids. I'm a little nervous by going after them, so we can wait a little bit later. We do need to at least get one of them, though. Otherwise, we're going to get a walk-on put on our team later on, which we do not want. Here's an outside linebacker. We can look. We got 4 guys coming back, but here's a 3-star kid. He looks pretty fast. He's not the smartest, but, you know, we're at the top of his list. Maybe I just want to go ahead and put him on our target list. So we can go ahead and do that. 3-star, I can do location. Again, you're just guessing at this point. I do suggest, though, you just do nothing but scouting, only because of that program prestige, quote-unquote, glitch. So I'm going to scout him. I'm not a big fan of JUCO kids. And forgive me if this feels like I'm just breezing through this, but I just want you to be aware of what all this does. Again, maybe I like this kid even though he's a JUCO kid. I can just do that. Again, I'm just scouting. You notice my points remaining are going down and such. And we're going to back out of here. And he's a 2-star. Again, we're not really have a big need at outside linebacker, so we can keep going. Middle linebackers, these are the ones who are a little bit stronger than outside linebackers and can convert well to defensive ends in a 4-3. So normally what I like to do, this kid is from Maryland. That's a local state that's really close to us. I can scout him because I like his size. He looks like a future defensive end to us, to me at least. And this kid right here, 5'10", 234. Looks like his speed went up a little bit, but he's a JUCO kid, so I'm not really sure if I'll target him. Biggest thing is I just want to see accurate numbers for week 1, okay? So I scouted those 2. Corner we know is a big need. We do need, it's actually, we're kind of okay there, so honestly, I'm not going to go after any of these guys. To be honest, I just don't think it's really worth it. 2-star, unless there's somebody that just really fits the bill. For example, for corner, I like to have tall guys who may be fast. But let's scout this kid. He's from Pennsylvania, in-state guy. Let's scout him and see if it's actually true. So he is pretty fast. That's not 4.35, him being that tall. That's kind of the guy I really like going after. So maybe I can go ahead and put a scholarship on him just for the sake of it. That's fine. But I can look at these other 2-star kids. Like here's a 6'1", 183. I can scout him. 4.52, that's a little too slow for my liking. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Free safety, we can look and see if we need a free safety. According to my notes, I probably wouldn't mind having one. Maybe, but again, just a bunch of 2-star kids. Nothing too exciting to look at right here. Both of them look kind of slow, and they're not very big, so I'm not going to recruit any of them. So we got 2 guys coming back next season, so I'm okay with that situation. Same as strong safety, we got 3 guys coming back. Here's a 2-star kid that doesn't fit with what I really like. Again, that's a separate video altogether. And you just keep on going. And unfortunately, and I'm really surprised, I think we're at least a 4-star program, if not a 5. Yet you notice we don't have any 4 or 5-star guys interested in us initially. I just think that's really weird. So what we can do, and I'll just breeze through this. The end result may not look all that great, but I just want to show you how I'm going to handle the rest of it. We got 89 points left, okay? So what I can do is go back. For athletes, I like to go after 2-star kids at the worst and go up. We've already scouted who I wanted to scout. I'm not going to scout this kid. I know he's not going to fit what we want to do. So back to quarterback, we are fine. We already got one committed. I'm going after this guy. If I felt like it, I could recruit a couple of these guys. I really don't want to. We got bigger fish to fry. Halfback, I kind of like this kid. I really don't want to go after any more. We already got 4 guys coming back, as you see right there. Fullback's kind of important, so we can keep looking here. 6'5", 221 out of Michigan. That's kind of close. 4'82", New York kid. That's pretty close. 4'7", Ohio kid. Now we're down to the 2-star kids, and I just doubt any of these guys will be able to do much of anything. By far, the best-looking prospects I'm seeing is this kid right here. That's why I went ahead and put a scholarship on him. Might as well. Wide receiver. Nobody there worth looking at. It's just a really poor list. Again, that's not my fault. That's just what the game gave me. Just not enough really talented guys, but we can fix that here in a little bit. Defensive end, I'm not going after any of these guys because our 4-3 defense doesn't really need any natural defensive ends. I like to move down other linebackers. Defensive tackle is a bit of a need for us. I like to go after a couple more here. Is there anybody that looked interesting? Like here's a kid out of Maryland. He's kind of small. I want to go after smart guys who are strong. Like a C-. We can scout some more here. Here's a B at 605 on the squat. C+, 585. C+, 605. So like this kid right here, I may put a scholarship on. So let's just go ahead and do that. Only because we got the points to do it. Now he's out of Alabama. Ooh, I'm probably not going to do that. It's going to cost me a lot of points to keep going after him. We'll wait. I can write his name down later if need be. So outside linebacker, 4.56. He kind of looks the part. I think he's kind of small. But we really don't need any outside linebackers. We're kind of good there. Middle linebacker, we already went after these 2 guys right here. And cornerback, we only saw one that we really liked. Again, I'm really fishing hard here because we're only looking at 2-star guys. There's not a whole lot to see there. So here are all these 3-star guys, and a lot of them are defensive ends. Again, I'm not a big fan of going after those guys. So what we can do is go back to our target list. We only got 5 guys listed here. This list will increase over time. So you go to halfback. Maybe I could put more points on them. I don't know. What I normally like to do, since I got 59 points left, let's just go ahead and scout the rest of those points off. So let's go back to interested prospects. We're going to deal with non-interested later on. Let's just go back and let's just look at a couple of these other quarterbacks. This is the most important position in the country or in football. And I'm just kind of seeing if anybody really shakes out. I'm guessing this guy's going to be awful. I can't imagine his pass accuracy of an F being any that much better if I scouted him, so I'm not going to bother. So let's go to halfback. No, we got too many guys there already. Receiver, tight end. But you get the gist. All you're doing is you're using up all these points because these points do not carry over. I repeat, these points do not carry over. So you got to use these points as best you can each week. So let's pretend I'll go after some, defensive ends. There's not much else to look at. So we got 3 defensive ends. All of them are pretty close. So let's just go ahead and scout these guys. 41 points. Now we're down to 38 points. For example, I'm just kind of comparing all three of these guys. This guy looks to be the strongest of the two. Probably the fastest. No, this guy's the fastest, but he's definitely weaker. I don't know. I mean, I can like pretend to go after this guy. I like his size at least. Let's pretend we'll go after him. Don't worry about if I don't like going after that type of player or not. That's not that important at this point. Defensive tackle, we probably need to scout some more here because we definitely need to pick up another player. Here's a Pennsylvania kid. Let's do that. Michigan 6'3", 304. I don't mind scouting him. We got 28 points left. We know fullback is a definite need. We can go back here. Have I scouted all these players? I haven't scouted him. Just making sure I go through every one of these. So we're down to 22 points, okay? If I feel like there's nothing else I can possibly do to scout, I may go ahead and put a scholarship on this kid. Now, look at him. Now, this kid is pretty far away. We can talk about house rules and stuff or what you feel like you need to recruit. I'm going to go ahead and go after this kid because he really fits what I like. Or does he? No, he doesn't. He's very slow. He's not the fullback that I'm looking for, so we're not going to bother. We're going after the guy we really want to go after. So I got 22 points left. Let's just go back to current targets. And I can spend some extra points on this halfback right here. I may do 15. That'll help a little bit. And we got 8 points left. Maybe this quarterback is just blowing my mind right now. Like, this is the greatest guy ever. Maybe I want to go after him. We can do 8 points there. And then defensive tackle. I really like this kid. We're down to 1 point. It's going to be really hard to find that 1 point. You're going to have to take like a points off here and try to put him somewhere else. Do not worry about that. If you get down to 1 to 3 points, that's good enough. You may have to spare one. That's okay. But since we're out of points, that means we are ready to go on to week number 2. So you back out. This is our main Recruiting Central screen. You hit the start button. You go to advanced next week. And it says, do you want the CPU to recruit for Pittsburgh? What that means is we got that 1 point left. Pittsburgh will find a way to try to use that point. I always go with no because I have no clue what they're going to try to do. They may take points off somebody and try to put them on somebody else to fill out those points. I'm not sure. But I always click no. So we're going to click no. We're going to head in right into week 2. So at the end of each week, you will get this list. It is the prospect list, or technically it is the commitment list. Now, we didn't get any commitments. I'll go ahead and tell you, you're not going to get hardly any commitments in week 1. Sometimes it's happened, but more often than not, it's not going to happen. So just don't feel distressed if you don't get any commitments that first week. Because that entire first week, what do? We scouted the entire time. We barely put scholarships on, 5, 6 players. So it doesn't hurt me whatsoever that this showed up as such. But at the end of every week, this will pop up. So let's hit continue. Now we are in week 2. So week 2 is a kind of a special week in this game, especially for off-season recruiting. The first thing we want to do, though, is go back to our current target list. Let's see if we have to make any changes. Now you notice something a little bit different. We got up and down arrows. That means we're moving up a kid's list, or we stayed the same. We moved up. We stayed the same. You'll eventually come across where you went down a player's list. I don't know if we're going to see that here. But as you scroll down, what I always like to make sure somebody didn't already commit somewhere. We'll see that here in a little bit in another week. But here are the 6, 7 guys that we have decided to put scholarships on that first week. Okay? So we can go to each one, and nothing changes here other than you may see this move up or down from what that arrow what we saw earlier. But when you go to review recruiting options down here, you hit the X button. Look what happens. So that first week, we pitched the program prestige pitch. And look what happens over here. We have a plus sign. That means he loves that pitch. That means you got a really good chance of landing that kid. You lucked out. You picked the right pitch as early as you possibly could. Good for you. That's really tough to do at times. So at this point, you know you have a good chance of getting him. Now you just need to put some extra points on this kid in order for him to commit. So you notice if you send the house, that's just a max of 15 points. That's a pretty low number compared to what we're going to see in later on, because this is an in-state kid. Again, the closer that kid is to you, the cheaper the points are to spend. So let's go ahead and put 8 points on him for now. We can go back and adjust this a little bit later. I just want to make sure I got some points on him for now because we got other guys we need to look at. Okay? We'll hit the start button. We'll back out. Now you can go back here. And Bruce Mayo, the halfback. So as you can tell here, there is no plus sign. There's not a negative. There's just nothing other than program prestige did not change his world. So now what you got to do is figure out what pitch else he likes. Now, he's a 3-star kid. He's local. Maybe location's a big deal for him. What you can do is look at the schools he's looking at. Purdue, West Virginia, Ohio State, Clemson. I don't know what they have in common, but what I can tell you is a lot of these are kind of like in the Midwest. Maybe you want to try location. You just don't have a clue. There's no real indicator telling you what this kid likes. What I like to go ahead and do is maybe try the Coach Prestige. That's usually the second most popular. Program is usually number 1, especially with the higher profile kids. Then Coach Prestige. So let's just go ahead and do Program Prestige. Now, one thing you can do, we're not going to do it for this kid. You do have the withdraw offer. Just wanted to point that out. We've done that a little bit in the previous week with that athlete. Just wanted you to be aware of what that is. So let's do Program Prestige. So we're going to go up here, and until I figure out where that plus sign is at, we do not know where it's at. Until I find that, what I like to do is give him the minimum amount of points. There is no points in me putting a ton of points on this kid if I have no clue if he likes Coach Prestige. He may hate Coach Prestige. So I'm just wasting points sitting in the house if I pitch Program Prestige and he hates it. So until I figure out what he really likes, I'm going to give him the bare minimum. We're just saving points at this point. So we'll hit the start button, and we put some points on him there. Next, we can go to the next guy. Now, you notice up here, you can hit the down and up arrows if you want to at this point. What I normally like to do is I always like to back out one, just kind of see where those arrows are at over here on the far right. So this quarterback looks like we didn't change spots, so we're still number 1 on the list. And let's see what we like here. So apparently he did not like Program Prestige. We can try something else. We can look at his list and see what he's into. Western Michigan, Penn State, Texas Tech, Ohio State. That could be anything. I mean, are those really good academic schools, or is it location? Again, I don't know. So I'm going to go ahead and play it safe. Let's recruit the kid, and let's go with Coach Prestige. I'm going to do the bare minimum until we find out what he really likes. Then you can go to Chris Robinson, corner. Again, it looks like we didn't move up his list, but that's because we're number 1 on the list. And looks like Program Prestige didn't change his life, so we're going to pick something else. Now, again, like I said earlier, 2-star kids really like the location pitch. That's probably what I'll try. When you back out here, you look to see where these guys are located. West Virginia, Kent State, that's in Ohio, Iowa State. He's from Pennsylvania. That's kind of all in the Midwest. Let's go ahead and attempt the location pitch. Again, we're just guessing at this point. Let's go location, and I'm going to give him the bare minimum just because we don't know what he really likes yet. Okay, now let's go to the next one. Donnell Roach. It's a great name. We moved up his list, apparently, and we are now number 1 on the list. But he didn't like location. It could be playing time. It could be who knows what it is. I can look at his list. Colorado, Georgia, Minnesota, Penn State. That's kind of all over the place. And again, he's from Canada. We can try, I don't know, we can do playing time. Again, it's just a guessing game. I'm going to give him the bare minimum. Then next up, fullback Jason Rushing. We are number 1 in his list. We probably moved up. Looks like we stayed the same, so I guess we stayed number 1. We can see here, look at that. We lucked out. He loved our Program Prestige. So that means I'm going to go ahead and put some extra points on him for now. Let's just do 8. We'll adjust it later. And we're going to leave it at Program Prestige. Okay? And then it's just all your guys that committed in the regular season. So we're going to go back. Who is the other guy that already committed or that already liked our pitch? It's this guy right here. He liked our Program Prestige. Just want to make sure I gave him that prestige or that pitch, which is correct, Program Prestige. So now I'm done with these guys right here. The next thing I like to do, when you think about week 2, think about week 2 non-interested guys. This is your chance to go after players you think you normally wouldn't be able to get. Okay, so let's go back. Let's go to all prospects. Anybody that is not have a green guy is a non-interested. For example, I select this Stephen Callahan, arguably the number 1 player in the country. We are not in his top 5, therefore we don't see any green. It's not interested, none of that stuff. That doesn't mean that we have no chance of getting him. What really matters is this right here. So we are in week 2. These arrows tell you how you affected that prospect by not doing anything. So all these guys that we didn't even touch because they're not interested in us, we have this basic even keel arrow. That means he doesn't care about us one way or the other. But what we can do is we can go by position. Let's go to athlete. Look at this kid right here. Look at this 4-star athlete, Antoine Ferguson. We have a down arrow. Here's what you're going to notice a lot with these non-interested prospects in week 2. He got upset that we did not recruit him. That tells me that he is interested in us, even though we are not in his top 5. Okay? Pay special attention to these guys who have down arrows, like this kid right here. So let's go after him. Looks like he could at least play quarterback. He may be able to play something else, but let's go ahead and scout him because he's a 4-star kid. And not many 4-star kids are interested in us right now for whatever reason. Let's scout him. He's from Jersey. He runs a 4.46. He doesn't have the best arm in the world, but let's just go ahead and scout him and recruit him just for the sake of this video. Okay? Now, what I suggest you do, and I do this all the time, is back out and make sure you write his name down. Every person, now, do you notice what happened right here? That arrow went down to even keel. It's a dead arrow, which means he liked that you scouted him. That's a big deal. So what I like to do is write down every non-interested prospect that I scout, like what we just done right here, and put his name down. That way, when we get to week 3, we will see if he puts us in his top 5. So for this case, I would put athlete, and then I would just go A. Ferguson, okay? Again, I think this is very important. Otherwise, you'll forget who these kids are because you're going to see a lot of these kids. Okay, so let's go down the rest of these athletes. Here's another one. Here's a 3-star kid. Look at that, a down arrow. That means we have a chance at him. Okay, so let's go to this kid. He's 6'1", 195. He's got bad hands. His awareness is good. He may be a defensive player. We have no clue. You won't know until you get to position changes. But I'm going to go ahead and scout him. And looks like he can run okay. But let's just go ahead and pretend like, yes, I really like this kid. So I'm going to write down his name. We're going to go I'm going to put an A. I'm going to put a D, and I'm going to put tally, just in case he puts us in his top 5. Do not put scholarships on this kid. Only scout him. Okay, just scout them. That way, in week 3, if they do have you in their top 5, then you put scholarships onto them. Otherwise, you're just wasting scholarships at this point. So let's keep going. And normally what I like to do for athletes, I like to probably go down to the 2-star kids, but I'm not going to for the sake of this. I'm like, I can if you want me to. But the rest of them, since I'm a 4-star program, maybe even a 5-star, I may just do nothing but 3-star and up. But here's another 2-star kid, 6'4", 272, Darren Williams. Let's go ahead and scout him. That gives us a little help there. And this kid is an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman. He may be a defensive end, a really big one. Not really sure, but let's just go ahead and write his name down just in case. So we're going to just put D. Williams, and he is an athlete. Okay, and let's just stop right there so you get the hint of what I'm doing here. So you go to quarterback. We'll probably find a few guys here. We'll just go down to the 3 stars, and that's it. You can never have too many quarterbacks because this is the most important position of football. Here's a 3-star kid out of Ohio. He got upset that we didn't recruit him that first week. We can scout him. And B+B, he's a lefty. Let's pretend I really like what I'm seeing here. And I'm going to go ahead and put his name down because you just never know. He may end up being a pretty good one for us down the road. So I'm going to just put his name down. And let's continue on. And this may be a long portion of the video. Week 2 is always the longest because I go through every single position. So I'm going through week 3 and I don't see anybody else. I've seen nothing but even keel arrows. So let's go to halfback. We can do the same thing here. Again, week 2 this is your most important week of recruiting. We're already at the 3-star kids and looks like nothing has changed. This is an up arrow, but that's because this kid is already on our target list. So we don't have to worry about that. I'm just going to keep on going. Okay, here's a 3-star kid. Out of Maryland, 5'9", 218. Let's go ahead and scout him, show him a little love. And look at this. His speed is much better than what it was. His awareness is still really good. 340, 535. Again, we can talk about the halfback stuff in another video. But let's just pretend I really like what I'm seeing here. So I'm definitely going to write his name down at least, just in case he puts us in his top 5. So it's called Pat Abdullah. Write that name down. And let's pretend that is the rest of the halfbacks for the 3-star. I'm not going to waste your time on that. Fullback. This is a position we would like to see somebody halfway interested in us, but I'm not seeing it. Here's a 2-star kid. It's at least worth recruiting. Kid out of South Carolina. I'm going to go ahead and scout him because, again, I'd rather get one of the Geese guys instead of a walk-on. Let's just go ahead and write his name down. Fullback, Mark Beck. And let's pretend that's the end of the 2 stars. I don't want to go any further. I normally wouldn't even go beyond 3. Then you guys, make sure I've done that correctly. Yes. Next up is wide receiver. We got so many wide receivers. You notice all these interest levels are dead blank. There's a very good chance none of these guys will be upset that we didn't recruit them in week 1. There's a lot of big-time wide receivers in this class. We're already at the 3-star list, and nothing's really popping up. So let's just go ahead and pretend that's the end of the 3-star list. You go to tight end. I wouldn't mind seeing somebody here. That'd be pretty neat, because I did write down I like to have at least one guy. But as you can tell, it's all blue arrows. Nothing up, nothing down, just all blue. That means you have no chance with them. I'll go ahead and tell you now. So we're already at the 2-star kids. Nothing there. You keep going and going and going until... Just take your time with it. You got nowhere to be. Go through every single position and try to find some of these kids that you think you wouldn't have a chance, but you actually do if you just put a little effort into it and try to find some of these kids out in the middle of nowhere, right in the midst of some of these really long lists. Here's a guard. We seem to be fine at guard. We got plenty of bodies there. That's why you see all these interest levels that did nothing. Then you got center. We already got one committed, but again, just go ahead and check. It just doesn't hurt. You may come across a 5-star kid that got upset that you didn't recruit him. Like, for example, here's a 3-star center. Kid out of Ohio. That's a pipeline state. Let's go ahead and just write his name down. We'll call Charles Turner. We'll go to the next one, defensive end. I'm not going to do defensive end because I'm not a big fan of, again, recruiting natural defensive ends for the 4-3 at least. I can get these guys if I was running the 3-4. But let's go to defensive tackle. This is an important position for us. We're already down to the 3-star kids. There's just not a lot of talent here. But here's a 3-star kid out of Wisconsin, 6'1", 330 pounds. Just an absolute monster. Let's scout him, show him some love. We'll write his name down, defensive tackle, D. Mitchell. Very good chance I can see him on our list next week. We can keep going. And since we are a 4-star program, I'm not going to go beyond the 2 or the 3 stars. But here are 2 more 3-star kids. Here's one right here. And if you notice this Fuller kid, another one we have a chance at. So let's write both their names down. Now, I'm not even looking at how many points we got left. I probably need to. But we're going to go Justice and Fuller. Injustice. And then you write the other name down, C. Fuller. And then we'll go to defense. Let's go outside linebackers. Again, I'm not going to waste too much time on that stuff. But again, I just want to show you, go through every position because you just never know. Here we're some more 3-star. I'm not seeing anything special here. And we're down to 2. Middle linebacker. We can look here. And I can see I got 102 points left. So we got a lot of points to spend because I'll show you what I'm going to do next after we get through the week 2 guys. That's why I like to call them. These are the week 2 prospects. And it's not just week 3 where you'll see these guys listed. It may be week 4. They may list them as well. So look at this kid right here. Look how big this kid is. 6'8", 235 pounder. An absolute mamma jamma. He is upset that we didn't recruit him in week 1. So guess what? Let's scout the kid. Let's show him some love. It looks like he's determined to go to Ohio State, so this may not work out, but it's worth taking a chance on. You just never know. He's pretty fast. He's pretty smart. He's pretty strong. I like what I'm seeing here. Let's just pretend that we really like him. And we'll write his name down. Jason Lloyd. Would love to have that kid. He just looks the part. He can play a future defensive end if needed. We'll go through the rest of these 3 stars. Again, now we're down to the 2. We can go through the corners. And we're almost done. We've got a few positions left. We're already at the 3-star. Just nobody seems too interested in us. But again, it never hurts to check. Here's a 3-star corner. Does he fit what we're looking for? 5'11", it's kind of short, and he's a JUCO kid. I'm not going to go after him, but I wanted to scout him just to make sure because you never know. That 4.31 could have been like a 4.19. So in that case, I would have definitely went after him. Or he would have been much smarter, whatever. But now you get the gist, okay? Just go after every single one of these kids. Anybody with a down arrow, just scout them and wait for the next week and see if you get them in their top 5. Now we're in the strong safety. Here's a 4-star strong safety out of Pennsylvania, local kid. Love this kid. We'll definitely write his name down. Nicholas Reed. So you see how it's possible that you could get a kid that you normally wouldn't even touch based off this little nugget right here. So we're definitely write his name down. We've scouted him. We're good there, so let's keep going. There may be somebody else worth looking at. Now we're down to the 2 stars. So what we got left is kicker. I doubt we'll see anybody here because if you have just one kicker on your team, there's not going to be anybody else interested, because we can look here. We technically got one kicker. So it's going to be very hard to attract a kicker to come in just a red shirt. They don't like to do that. And same with punter. Here we already have the 2-star kids. There's nobody there. Okay. So now we have interested prospects. Let's go back and see if we want to add any more scholarship to somebody. Is there anybody that just we feel like we need to give another chance at? And at this point, you can go by this right here if you need to. Nothing has really changed with this list other than if you went up or down on their list. Okay. So I can stay at the all list and not go position by position. And I can just look at these 3-star kid. Let's pretend I really like what I'm seeing here, and I'm going to give him a chance. Let's just go ahead and give him a scholarship. How about that? I'm going to give him the minimum, because apparently program prestige didn't work. Because if you remember, look what we have here. I have not even given him, I do not want to recruit him. We're going to back out. You notice I haven't even given him a scholarship yet. Yet look what happened. When I select him, and I go to recruit player, it shows program prestige. That's what I mentioned the first week. If you just scout a kid and nothing else, it gives him the program prestige pitch. Again, it's like a little glitch in the game, but just take that to your advantage or use it to your advantage. So let's go ahead and scout the kid. I'm going to do the bare minimum, and I'm going to just do coach prestige for now. That's fine. We can go down. Is there anybody else like this 3-star kid? Is this the kid that was like really big and really slow? 254, 507. We can look. I'll go ahead and give him a scholarship because, again, I just do not want to walk on at that position. So let's just do something like coach prestige. That's fine. Okay, and now we're at 2-star kids that I really don't want to go after. This was his quarterback that I wasn't interested in. So let's just pretend I'm done looking at the rest of the interested prospects. So what I like to do is go back to targets, current targets, and let's just fill out the rest of our points. We got 82 points to spend. Here's where we can really boost up some things. So what I like to do is go to the players that have a positive pitch. Okay, so let's go from one to another. Let's go and do the max points for each one of these guys. These are the most important ones because we want to get these guys to commit and get out of the way. And I'm just backing out and just looking and finding. I think we only had 2 guys here. Here's, okay, positive pitch. Let's just go ahead and send the house on him. And then we're done right there. So we got, what, 53 points left? Let's go ahead and just boost some points for everybody else on our list. So, for example, this kid right here, let's do 16, okay? Again, it's just up to you how you want to do it. Here's another one. Let's do 12 for this fullback. We can do 8 points for him. We can go 4 points here. That's fine. Again, it's just kind of up to you how you want to do it. I'm just trying to use the rest of my points because they do not carry over. Let's do 8 points there. Here's another fullback we've maxed out. So we probably have more points to spend somewhere else. We got 11 points. We'll have to go and see if we can find another spot to do this. We may not be able to. Like, here's an 8-pointer right there. We're down to 7 points. And if you can't figure out where to put those other 7 points, you may have to take points off of somebody and put them on somebody else. It's just however you want to do it. For example, maybe I don't want to put 15 points. Oh, man, that's not a good example. This fullback right here, maybe I just want to do 6. That gives me 13 points, and then I can go back. Do you want to change the recruiting option for this player? Yes. Let's make sure I've done that correctly. Okay. But instead, you want to put this on another guy. It's however you want to do it. Like, here's 8 points. We were able to make some legway there. But that may be it. We may don't have any other spot to put that. So we're down to 9 points. Now, it's up to you how you want to do those 9 points. Do you want to go after another player? Because you've got to remember, we have 12 scholarships left. We can go back to interested prospects and put them on somebody we really want. I couldn't find anybody I really liked at this point. Otherwise, I probably would have given him a scholarship earlier. Like this defensive tackle. We haven't even scouted this kid. And he's from Texas. That would be a really costly thing. And it's not a... And we just don't feel like we have to. This Kurt Collier, how about this kid? This is probably a good investment because he could be a future defensive end for us. Let's go ahead and put 8 points on him. And we're going to do coach prestige because program prestige didn't work. Let's just do coach prestige for now. Okay? So now we're down to 1 point. That means we are ready to go to week 3. Okay? So we're going to advance the next week. And we're going to hit no because I don't want the CPU to handle this. Let's go on to the next week. And here we are. Remember what I said at the end of the first week? This screen will pop up at the end of every week. And it looks like we picked up 2 commitments, an outside linebacker Michael Dykes, and a fullback, Jason Rushing. So we should be good at fullback. So, and we got picked up an outside linebacker, which is a position we really didn't need, but at least we got somebody there for depth. So let's hit continue, and let's go back to our current targets. And you go to the team overview screen. We now have filled up our spot at fullback. So now we got 2 on the team, 1 currently and 1 coming on. At this point, if you felt like it, I can take my scholarship off for this kid. This was a backup plan. I think it's a good idea to have a backup plan in case another guy you really wanted couldn't get on the team or decide to commit elsewhere. So at this point, you can withdraw the offer as you see down here. And if he had a plus sign, I may would have left him on, but we still can't find out what he likes. So I'm going to withdraw his offer. That gives me an extra spot to fill. Okay, so in your notes, for those of you who like to keep notes, you can just check off the fullback list. You know, just check off at fullback saying you're good there. Okay, so here we are at the current target list. Let's just stay here, and let's see if we need to make any adjustments. You notice here we went up a little bit for this defensive end, and we stay the same for everybody else. But what we want to do is keep going and see if anybody else committed elsewhere. Looks like there didn't. We will check that later on in another week. Let's go up to the very top of our target list. Programmer stage, for whatever reason this kid hasn't committed yet, but I'm going to go ahead and put 15 points on him now. Bruce Mayo, we still don't know what he likes. The next popular one, since he's a local kid out of Pennsylvania, let's just go ahead and do location. I'm going to do the bare minimum until we find out what he likes. Quarterback Nick Logan. We don't know what he likes. He didn't like coach prestige. He didn't like program prestige. Let's go ahead and try location just because he's an in-state kid. Corner, another local kid out of Pennsylvania. Look at this. We tried location the previous week, and he loves that pitch. So we're going to stick with location, and let's do 8 for now. We'll probably go up to 15 later. And then we got a middle linebacker, Kurt Collier. We don't know what he likes yet, but he's out of Maryland. It could be anything. We can look at his list. Connecticut, Maryland, Georgia, Virginia. All that's pretty much in the same area except for Georgia. And he's a 2-star kid, so let's try location. Okay, let's do that. Let's just give location a shot and see if we have a chance. Next up, defensive tackle, Donnell Roach. We don't know what he likes. Let's try coach prestige right now. Let's just take a guess at this point. Once you get past 2 of them, you can't find out what they like. Just pick your most popular one that's coming up next and go with that. So now all we got left is all these guys who have already committed. So what we can do, I'm going to go back to the corner. Let's just go ahead and put 15 points on him for now. And now how many points do we got left? We got 126 points. So this is what, week 3 technically? What's it say? Yes, we are in week 3. And let's go to interested prospects. Now you notice here, remember the beginning of recruiting, we didn't have any 4-star guys interested. Now we got 1, we got 2, and we probably got a few other 3-star guys that we was going after earlier. So these were the guys that we were going after in week 2 who do not have us in their top 5 initially. Okay, so let's just go from position to position. I have these listed. First of all, A. Ferguson. Here he is. Antoine Ferguson, 4-star kid. Look at that. Now, all of a sudden, he's got us in his top 5. Isn't that pretty sweet? Normally, if you didn't pay attention to that, you never would have had a chance going after this kid. So let's pretend we really like him, and let's go after him. So let's continue to scout or to recruit him. He didn't like program prestige, so let's just do coach prestige for now for the sake of it. Next on our list was D. Talley. Hey, look at that. There he is, David Talley. 3-star kid. We're in his top 5. We just don't know what he likes yet. Let's just do coach prestige for now. Again, it's a guessing game at this point. And we have another athlete on our list, D. Williams. And here he is, Darren Williams, another kid out of New Jersey. This is the really big kid. He didn't like program prestige, but at least we're in his top 5. So let's go ahead and just put a scholarship on him. We got 10 left, so we got plenty of spots to fill. Let's just try, he's a 2-star kid. Let's do location since New Jersey is pretty close to us. Let's try that. So those were the 3 athletes that I wrote down earlier. Let's go to quarterback. I wrote down a quarterback. His name is Paul Dawson. And look at there. There he is at the top of our list. I really like his arm. He's a lefty. I'm a lefty. Hey, look at that. Program prestige actually worked out for us. So we actually have a chance to get him to commit. Let's go ahead and put a scholarship on this cat. Let's just do 8 for now. And we'll leave it at program prestige. Because, again, he liked program prestige, so we're going to leave it there. And that was the one quarterback I looked at. So it's working out in our favor. Every single guy that I've written down so far has us in their top 5, which is incredible. So let's go to halfback. Next up, we have Paul Abdullah. Pat Abdullah. Look at there. He's on our list. He got us in the top 5, and we're already up at number 2. That's pretty sweet. I really like what I saw. Let's see. He didn't like program prestige, but that's okay. We can try coach prestige. I definitely want to put a scholarship on him, though, because I liked what I saw. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bothered going after him. Let's look at a fullback. This was the kid, let's see, M. Beck, this little 2-star kid. Now, I can look here. We already got the fullback committed that we wanted. I don't need another one, and I don't like this guy's speed. So let's just not go after him. And we don't even have a positive pitch yet, so I'm not going to waste my time there. But now you're seeing what I'm talking about here. A guy that normally wasn't going to be on our list is now on our interested prospects list. Let's keep going. We wrote down a center name. His name is C. Turner. He did not make the list, but that doesn't mean that he may not make the list later. He may make the list in week 4. It's not just a week 2 to week 3 thing. It can also linger into week 4. But as of now, he did not make this list. Let's go to defensive tackle. We picked up 3 guys here. Mitchell, I can't even read my own writing. Mitchell, Justice, and Faulkner. I should have wrote down his name a little bit better. But it looks like we have only these 2 guys. But look at this. 3-star defensive tackle, David Mitchell out of Wisconsin. I'm going to go after this kid because I love his size. It's super rare to find a defensive tackle that big. So let's just go after him. Let's do coach prestige. That's fine. And Justice is the other guy. Let's just do coach prestige again. He's 3-star. I'm okay with that. So look at that. 2 guys that wasn't on our list before, now are on the list. Next guys I wrote down was a middle linebacker, Jay Lloyd. And look at that. Jason Lloyd. There he is. He's on top of our list. Looks like he's ready to commit to Ohio State. We can still give him a shot. I really like what I see, though. This kid is like an absolute stud. I can see why the Buckeyes want him. Let's go ahead and give him a chance. Again, I think he's going to commit, but I'm going to give him a chance. If we can just figure out what pitch he likes, then we may have a chance there, although a slim one. The last guy I wrote down was a strong safety in Reed. And look at that, 4-star, Nicholas Reed. We made his top 5, and he didn't like program prestige, but that's okay. We'll just give him something else. Let's do the bare minimum until we figure out what he likes. We'll go with coach prestige. So now we have, if you notice here, we got 3 scholarships left and 103 points to spend. So let's go back to our target list. Since those were all the week 2 guys that I wrote down, let's go back to current targets. I'm going to leave those 4 spots available because, again, I will over-recruit if I end up using all of them and get all these guys to commit. So Nicholas Reed, let's just go ahead and do like 15 points here. We can do 8 for this guy. These were all these kids. These are all the week 2 kids. Incredible. Let's do 16 at least for this kid. We can do 8 for him, and we'll probably go back and 8 or 6. It doesn't really matter how you want to go about doing this. 8 or 16. I'm just making sure I'm trying to use up all my points. Looks like I'm going to have plenty to use. We can do 8. Now we're down to 29. We've maxed out there. Mayo, let's just do 8 here. Let's do 8 for this kid. Darren Williams, let's do 8 for him. Now we're down to 9 points. Let's do 8 here. Now we're just down to 3. 3 may be tough to kind of put somewhere, but that's okay. So 3 points are left. I'm okay with that, sparing those. So we have maxed out as many points as we possibly could, which is great. So that was a very efficient week for us. We've added a lot of extra guys. Look at all these 3 and 4-star guys we picked up. These 2 4-stars and a few 3-stars, all off that week 2 ordeal. Okay, so now since we're pretty much out of points, let's go back and let's go on to the next week. So it looks like recruiting is starting to pay off. We are now in week 4, and guess what? We picked up a few more commitments. Nick Logan, the quarterback, we've been going after him for a while. Ryan Williams, we've been going after him for a while. And so is this corner, 2-star kid, Chris Robinson. So we picked up 3 more guys. So what we can now do is go back to current targets. And first thing I like to do, good thing is everybody's going up here. Everybody up, going up their list. That's incredible. We want to see plenty of that. But what I want to look at anybody that committed elsewhere. We should see that. Okay, this Ferguson kid. Too little, too late. It was worth a shot. I'm going to go ahead and mark him off our list so we don't have to worry about him. But it was definitely worth attempting going after this guy. So at this point, when you highlight a kid that's already committed elsewhere, you can just hit the recruit player button and ask if you want to remove this player from your list. And yes, we want to do that. Same with this quarterback, Paul Dawson. Was this another one? Yes, it was. This was a week 2 kid. We can go ahead and take him off our list. And that was it. So let's go back to the very top. And let's see what the deal is here. We got a bunch of up arrows. We got a down arrow for this middle linebacker for whatever reason. It may be a negative pitch. And if that's the case, we may drop him altogether. But let's continue. Let's go back to the top. Look at this. We're now number 1 on this kid's list, and he loves the coach prestige. Good deal. So this is a kid, perfect example of one that was initially not in his top 5. You normally think we wouldn't have a chance with him, but it's the whole week 2 magic that can lead to getting a kid like this. Okay, so let's put 15 points on him. Coach prestige. Next up, David Mitchell. We still don't know what he likes. Let's do coaching style. That's usually my go-to next. David Talley. We can do coach style again for this one. That's fine. I mean, and this kid, he's ready to commit to Ohio State. He just won't, but we did move up his list. We just don't know what he likes. I'll continue to go after him until we can figure out what he likes. I think it's worth it. Then you got defensive tackle, Nicholas Justice. You got, let's just do coaching style. Apparently, coach prestige isn't helping out for a lot of these players except for a couple. We can try coaching style here. Again, this is all a guessing game at this point. You can go here, coaching style. I'll just try it. Now we're down to 2-star kids. Look at that. 2-star kid, and he liked our location. Good deal. So what we're going to do is go up here. Let's do 16 points on him for now. And let's do coach style. Yeah, we've already done location. Let's just do coach style here. It may be playing time you may want to try. That's probably what we'll try after next if we already haven't done that so far. We'll go here, and now we're done with all of these kids. So what I may go back and do is go back up here and max out some points because we got 89 points left, and we still got to look at some interested prospects. Let's just wait on that. Let's just go back to interested prospects now. So you remember some of the kids that we was going after earlier? Like here's let's see. Let me look at my list. We have a cornerback we did not write down. Defensive tackle, Justice, we're going after him. I was trying to think. Let me look at the athletes. Let's just go by position. Talley and Williams, we're going after those two still. You got a halfback, Mayo and Abdullah. We've done our part there. Fullback, we decided not to go after that one kid. Center, we can go to that center we wrote down. Looks like that's not going to happen. Defensive tackle, these were the 2 guys we are still going after, so we're fine there. The middle linebacker, we're still going after Lloyd, and Nicholas Reed, of course, we're going after him. So at this point, you can go back to all prospects. If you feel like you need to add another player, you can. Because if you notice here, we got 5 scholarships left. You got to remember, I only need 15. So I do not need all 25 of these scholarships filled up. So technically, if all of these players right here committed, then my class would be set for the rest of the way. Okay? So let's just go ahead and max out points elsewhere until there's nobody else. I can go ahead and tell you there's nobody else on the interested list that I want to go after that fit what I want to do. There's just nobody else that I need. I mean, unless there's just one of these outside. I mean, we don't need another outside linebacker. We're fine there. So I'm okay with leaving everything as is. I mean, so let's just go back to interested prospect to current, and we're going to max out the rest of these. Let's do 16 here. We could do 16 here. We could do 16 here. And notice how those points are going out pretty quick. Let's do 16 here. We'll do 16 here. I'll do, for this halfback, let's just do 8 for now. We're already down to 12. We could do 8 here, and I'm already down to 6. We could do 4. Now I'm already down to 4. And again, you can play around with these to see if you can squeeze in 2 extra points. I'm not going to do that for the sake of this video. But as you know, I like where I kind of am at right now. So what we're going to do is that was a quick week. So all we got left is you back out. We are now heading into week 5. So this is the final week. Let's see if we can close this class strong. So what we're going to do is we're going to advance the week, and I'm going to have them not recruit for us this week. And look at this. This was a humongous recruiting haul for us in week 4. We picked up 6 guys. Look at that. Nicholas Reed, a week 2 guy. Incredible. Then we got defensive tackle Nicholas Justice, a week 2 guy. Incredible. Bruce Mayo, week 2 guy. Athlete David Talley, week 2 guy. Look at this. Here is the middle linebacker that we thought we had no chance because he looked destined to go to Ohio State. But guess what? He decided to commit to us. And Donnell Roach, week 2 guy. This is kind of a first for me. I've never had these many week 2 guys commit all at once. 6 of them. So these are 6 guys that I normally wasn't going to get if I would have just stuck to my interested prospects list. If I would have done that, none of these guys would have committed. So that is an amazing haul, which means we should have plenty of points to spare to go after any remaining guys we need to for week 5. So let's go hit continue. We'll go to current targets, and now you see we're just down to 3 guys. I'm going to go down here, make sure we take off anybody who committed elsewhere. Oh, this is the other kid. I'm sorry. He did commit to Ohio State. We did pick up another linebacker, though, which is fine. So that was a different guy. I'm so sorry. But we're going to get rid of him. I picked the wrong guy. So that was the only one who did commit elsewhere. So we're going after these 3 guys. Now, halfback, I got one. I can go after this Abdullah kid again because I really like what I saw there. Let's do playing time for this kid. I'm going to do the max 30 until we figure out what he really likes. Maryland, let's do this playing time kid. For Pat Abdullah, let's do 30 there. And location, athlete Darren Williams liked the location. Let's do 16 for him. That gets us down to 5 points. There's nothing really much else I can do unless I want to go back to the interested prospects. And is there somebody here I am missing? I don't think there is. There was nobody else I really wanted. Everything, now we're getting to the 2-star kids, and we've already got a couple of those already. So I think we're good. So there is nothing else I could do. We've used up all of our points outside of technically 5 points. So all that's left is see if we can get commitments from 1, if not all 3 of these guys. So let's back out and let's finish recruiting. So we're going to hit start. We're going to advance week, and we're going to hit no. And unfortunately, none of those 3 guys committed at the end. We couldn't figure out what pitch they liked. We were just guessing at that point, and apparently we didn't guess correctly, and that's okay. So we'll select continue, and here you get a couple new things on your list. Now you can look at the signing classes. You can look at your signings, the guys that committed to you. You can look at your top classes and the country, and the rest of it stays pretty much the same. So let's back out, and let's look at view signings. These are all the players that did commit to us. Pretty cool. You could go look at the prospect info, and you can kind of compare, see who done what in terms of their attributes and such. You can do that. Of course, you can sort by position. We did pick up one athlete. I want to write his name down. That is Tally. We're going to look at him in the position changes screen here in a little bit. But we're going to back out and look at top classes. So here are the top classes in the country. I don't know where we're going to be honest. We can look here. We didn't even make the top 25. We made 28th in the country. To be honest, that's not bad for what little talent was looking at us at the beginning of the offseason. Like, we had no 4-star kids interested us in the offseason. Yet we somehow was able to pick up a couple extra ones via the week 2 recruiting stuff. So we ended up with a number 28 recruiting class, which I think is actually pretty good for our situation. Okay, so that's, you can look at every single class for every single team, all that good stuff. And it shows you the top 3 players in your recruiting class. It shows you how it's broken down by star and the total number of players for your recruiting class. You can hit team information, and it shows all this is just your previous season into the season stats and such. It doesn't really mean anything. State prospects, you can look and see what happened. Now, this is another thing. I've never really looked hard into this, but you notice this kid right here, Spencer Burley, a 3-star tight end. He did not qualify. I guess it was an academics thing. It would be hilarious. I've never looked into it again. He may end up being a JUCO kid like another year or 2 down the road. Would be funny if that actually happened, but for whatever reason, he's not going anywhere. So that's just one of those things that can happen. Now, you go to current targets. Look what happened to Pat Abdullah. This was another week 2 halfback kid we went after, but for whatever reason, he just didn't qualify. Don't know why. And then you have a good example. It's this kid right here, Darren Williams. He qualified, but he just didn't commit anywhere. Why is that? I have no clue. You look here, and I don't know what the deal is. He just decided not to go anywhere. Maybe he's quitting football. I don't know. Maybe he's going to be a priest or something. Who knows? Either way, I just think that's interesting when you see that. I've never done enough research on it, but it's possible you may see these names down the road in your dynasty, but I cannot confirm that. Okay? So the rest of the stuff we already know what all this looks like. Like, you go back to like all prospects. And here are a bunch of kids that did not qualify. That's what it shows first, is the did not qualify kids. Like, here's a strong safety, 5-star kid. Didn't qualify probably because of grades or something. Who knows? But I just wanted you to be aware of what that was. Okay, so now you hit the start button. We're back out of here, and now we're going to finalize recruiting, and we should go to position changes. So let's select yes. And here we are at position changes. If you back out, we are in step 4 of the off-season schedule. So we go to position changes. The only thing I really want to show you here, I'm going to do a separate video for position changes later on. But what I really want to show you was this right here. This is the one athlete we picked up. David Talley, another week 2 kid. You notice when you select him, you have the opportunity to move him to a position. You need to put him somewhere. I don't know where. You just need to put him somewhere. Okay, so let's just look. At quarterback, he's a 72 overall. You keep going, and it just shows what his overall is going to be for each position. Now, it's looking like he can only really play quarterback, but I've seen these guys be able to play other things just as equally. For example, he's equally as good as an outside linebacker. Who would have thunk it? I don't know. But there he is, and he can play outside linebacker for you. You can keep going. It looks like he could be an okay free safety. He could be a decent strong safety. So what you can do, I'm sure he can't play punter. So what you can do here is you can decide, do I need him to play quarterback? Is he going to fit my offense? If not, then you can go to outside linebacker. Do you need help here? We can look here, and we got one really strong player and a bunch of guys who are just kind of there. You remember that athlete? He's a 72 overall outside linebacker. It may be in our best interest to put him right here. Or we can show him at free safety, 68 overall. Looks like we're not doing very good here. We don't have any good bodies. He may need to play here, and he would probably be starting free safety next season. Looks like we're fine as strong safety. So if we go back to that athlete, we can decide, hey, I run a pro-style offense. I really don't need speed at quarterback, so maybe I can try him at one of the outside linebacker spots. Or we can try him at free safety. You look at his speed as an 80. I want more speed at free safety besides 80. Like, I need them like in the 90s and even higher. So I'm going to put him at an outside linebacker. For now, let's put him at left outside linebacker. So when you go over here to your left, your outside linebackers, there he is. So I can move him to right. I can, you can change this however you want to do it. This has nothing to do with recruiting, but I just want you to be aware of your athletes, because these are the guys you have to move around. Now, if you want to, I don't do this very often, you can look and see if some of these other freshmen may be able to play somewhere else. I'm not really sure. For example, we'll just take this guy, Nicholas Justice. He was another week 2 guy that we had commit. We can select him. Take your time with it. You may find he may be able to play something else. Now, I will go ahead and tell you about the whole position changes and how they can really boost. All this looks pretty normal to me. I wouldn't be shocked if he couldn't play anything else but defensive tackle. Let's pretend, like this kid right here, Josh Davis. Let's pretend that I recruited this guy for the sole purpose of him being a defensive end. I repeat, do not move these guys their freshman year. Let them get in your system for one season. Once he redshirts or he's a true sophomore, and that's when you move him to defensive end. Otherwise, it will not work. But again, that's a video for another day, so don't worry about that right now. The biggest thing I wanted to show you was the athletes. You do have to move them before you move on to the next phase of the offseason schedule. Okay? So at this point, I want to keep these changes. So at this point, I am not going to show you training results. That has nothing to do with recruiting, cut players. I can go ahead and at least show you. I don't think I really have to. But what we can do, I'll go ahead and simulate. We're going to finish position changes. Let's just go ahead and do that now. We're going to go continue, training results, click yes. So this kind of does pertain to recruiting, so I'm glad I've done this. Training results. Remember the 30% points you put in your school budget? This is where that comes in. The more points you put in the training, the higher these numbers go up. This is the easiest way for players to get better in your program. So if you really want to emphasize training, you do have the ability to do so. And all this does, it just shows you how many overall points this player went up. So for example, Tyler Palco, however you want to say his name, it went up +2. He's now at 95 overall. That's what that means. These are all current players on your roster. It's none of these freshmen that came in because they're not even on your campus yet. But I just wanted you to be aware of this because that kind of does affect the whole recruiting thing because it is training and you did put points on that. So the next thing we're going to do is go to cut players. So we're going to just hit start and go to cut players. And here is cut players. Now you notice here, there's a few things. You notice we have a total of 66 players. That means we do not need to cut anybody. If that said right here 72 or whatever, that means we'd have to cut like 2 players. But in this case, we don't have to worry about that. That's the only reason I wanted to show you this, was because this is where you actually cut players. So you can go through here, and if you see somebody you feel like you need to cut, you can do that. I don't cut anybody unless I have to. And in this case, I don't have to because we got a total of 66 players, not 71, 72 or higher. Okay, so that is cut players. Once you're done with that, then you set your depth chart. I always do that in the preseason. I don't do that right then because that sets like your preseason ranking and such. But that is the end of offseason in a nutshell. Hopefully you got something out of this. Just to recap, we took notes about our players and who we was going after in terms of positions. Then we went to school budgets. School budgets, that's where you decide how to distribute your points via recruiting, training, or discipline. Players leaving, we looked to see if anybody was leaving early and seniors who were graduating. Then we went through all of recruiting. That took up most of our time. Then you have position changes where we wanted to make sure we want certain players going in certain positions, mainly the athletes that you just got to commit. We just went through training results. Those were all the training points that you put in your school budget from earlier. And now you're just down to cut players where you need to cut players if you need to. After that, you just set your depth chart and you go on to the next season. So hopefully you enjoyed all that. I know that was a bit long-winded, but there's just a lot to show, and I wanted to show all that in one video. So going forward, any new video I will add to this recruiting series, it'll be more specific on how to recruit specific positions and stuff. I'm sure there's plenty of ideas I can come up with. All right, guys. I'll talk to you later.